Every night at airports across the world, something happens that almost nobody notices. The terminals go quiet. The coffee shops pull their shutters down. Families stop dragging roller bags across polished floors. The departure boards, enormous, glowing, relentless, thin out to a handful of flights. And then, as if on a signal nobody broadcast, the heaviest aircraft in the world start moving. A Qatar Airways 777 rolls away from its gate in Doha. An Emirates A380 lifts off the tarmac at Dubai International. A Cathay Pacific A350 climbs out of Hong Kong, banking east over the South China Sea. A United 787 pushes back at Newark. A British Airways 777 clears the runway at Heathrow. All of them bound for cities on the other side of the planet. All of them leaving between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. All of them doing this every single night, on schedule, without exception. Now, if you've ever stood at an airport gate at 11:30 p.m., carry-on in hand, staring at a boarding door that isn't open yet, wondering who on earth decided this was a reasonable time to move 300 people across the sky, you're asking exactly the right question. Because here's what the airline will tell you. You'll sleep through most of it. Here's what they won't tell you. That departure time was engineered down to the minute. That it has less to do with your comfort and everything to do with a wind river 6 miles above the ocean, the price of a gate slot at 3 a.m. versus noon, and a connecting passenger in Bangkok who has never heard of you and never will, but whose ticket is quietly subsidizing yours. The red-eye flight is not a compromise. It is a masterpiece of invisible logistics. And once you understand why these planes only fly when you're asleep, you will never look at a departure board the same way again. Let's start with the most uncomfortable truth first. Airlines know more about your body than you do. And they use that knowledge to run a more profitable operation. Here's the concept: the circadian rhythm. Your body runs on a roughly 24-hour internal clock, governed by light, darkness, and a tiny region in your brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. When the sun goes down, your brain starts producing melatonin. Your core body temperature drops. Your heart rate slows. Your digestive system goes into standby mode. Your body, in short, is trying to shut you down for maintenance. Airlines understood this long before the neuroscience caught up with the policy. A passenger who boards at 11 p.m. is already primed for sleep. Their biology is doing the airline's job for them. Within an hour of takeoff, a significant portion of the cabin is unconscious. Seat reclined, blanket up, eye mask on, gone. From a crew management perspective, a sleeping cabin is, and this is a direct quote from the industry, a dream scenario. Less foot traffic in the aisle, fewer meal service rounds, fewer call buttons, fewer spilled drinks, fewer requests for headphone adapters, fewer passengers asking when they land. A quiet plane is a manageable plane, and a manageable plane allows the crew to rest in shifts, which is legally required on ultra-long-haul routes anyway. But here's where it gets more sophisticated. It's not just about keeping passengers sedated for operational convenience. It's about resetting them. Take the New York to London route, one of the most traveled long-haul corridors in the world. Depart JFK at 10 p.m. Eastern. Fly through the night. Land at Heathrow at 10 a.m. London time. 7 hours have elapsed on the plane. 5 hours have been added to the clock. A passenger who slept through most of that flight wakes up, groggy, yes, but in daylight. London is showing them morning. Their brain, which responds to light cues above all else, starts recalibrating. By evening, they can be functional. By day 2, they're adjusted. Compare that to a hypothetical 10 a.m. departure from New York. You land in London at 10 p.m. local time. You've been awake for 18 hours. London is showing you darkness. Your body wants breakfast. The city wants you to sleep. That is a recipe for 3 days of jet lag, which is not the beginning of a good business trip or a happy vacation. The night flight, counterintuitively, is the easier recovery. Airlines aren't scheduling these departures despite the biology. They're scheduling them because of it. Now, let's talk about something that has nothing to do with sleep and everything to do with physics. 6 miles above the Earth's surface, at the cruising altitude of a commercial aircraft, there is a river of air moving so fast it would snap a flag clean off its pole. We call it the jet stream, and it is, depending on the direction you're flying, either the most powerful ally or the most expensive enemy in aviation. The jet stream is a band of high-altitude winds that flows from west to east across the northern hemisphere, driven by the temperature difference between the warm tropics and the cold polar regions. On a good day, a strong day, it can reach speeds of over 200 miles per hour. To put that in perspective, a Boeing 787's cruising airspeed is roughly 560 miles per hour. Catch a 200 miles per hour tailwind, and your effective ground speed climbs towards 760. You are traveling faster than many military jets. You are traveling, in fact, close to the speed of sound, in a passenger aircraft with people watching movies and ordering wine. The fuel implications of this are staggering. Fuel accounts for between 30 and 40% of an airline's total operating costs. On a long-haul flight, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars per route per day. Shaving even 45 minutes off a transatlantic crossing by riding the jet stream rather than fighting it can save tens of thousands of dollars in fuel on a single trip. Multiply that across an airline's entire long-haul network across 365 days a year, and you are now talking about sums that reshape balance sheets. Here's the connection to nighttime flying. The jet stream follows patterns. It shifts seasonally, it shifts daily, and atmospheric scientists and airline meteorologists track it with enormous precision. What they've found, broadly, is that the optimal eastbound crossing windows on many key corridors, New York to London, Los Angeles to Tokyo, the North Atlantic tracks, tend to align with overnight departure times. Depart late at night, hit the jet stream at peak strength over the mid-Atlantic, arrive at your destination having burned less fuel than an afternoon flight on the same route. This is not coincidence. Route planning departments at major carriers employ meteorologists specifically to model jet stream positioning months in advance. When you buy a ticket on a transatlantic overnight, you are not just buying a seat. You are buying a ticket on a flight path that has been optimized against the wind at 35,000 feet. The sky, it turns out, has a timetable of its own. Airlines learned to read it. Here is where the economics become almost architectural in their complexity. Major airlines, Emirates, Qatar Airways, Singapore Airlines, Lufthansa, British Airways, do not operate as point-to-point carriers on their long-haul routes. They operate as networks. Hub and spoke systems, where passengers from dozens of origin cities funnel into a central hub, transfer onto a long-haul aircraft, and then funnel out again at the other end into dozens of destination cities. This is not incidental. Connecting itineraries, a flight from, say, Manchester to Dubai to Melbourne, rather than a direct flight that doesn't exist, are the structural backbone of airline profitability on international routes. They allow carriers to fill wide-body aircraft on corridors that couldn't support point-to-point traffic alone. and they are substantially more lucrative per passenger than simple A to B bookings. Now, here's the critical scheduling reality. For a connecting itinerary to work, the timing of the long-haul leg has to be precise. A passenger arriving at Dubai International from London at 3 a.m. needs to be able to connect onto a morning departure to Singapore or Bangkok or Sydney. That means the London-Dubai leg must depart London late enough to fill from regional European feeder flights, and arrive in Dubai early enough for the morning wave of onward departures. Run the math backwards from the required arrival time in Dubai, accounting for flight duration and the hours gained crossing time zones, and you land almost exactly on a late evening departure from London. The 10 p.m. gate call is not an accident. It is the output of a network scheduling algorithm that is simultaneously solving for hundreds of connections across dozens of city pairs. Dubai International runs more than 90 million passengers per year. London Heathrow handles over 80 million. Amsterdam's Schiphol, Frankfurt, Singapore Changi, Hong Kong, all of them are synchronizing departure and arrival waves like conductors keeping an orchestra in time. And the long-haul aircraft that move between them overnight are the strings section, invisible to most of the audience, but structurally essential to the performance. Miss that window by 2 hours, and the cascade begins. Passengers miss connections. Aircraft sit idle at gates. Crew hours expire. Slot penalties are triggered. What started as a scheduling preference becomes, very quickly, an operational and financial crisis. There is one more layer to this that tends to surprise people, and it lives not in the air, but on the ground. Airports are real estate, premium real estate, operating in one of the most regulated and logistically complicated environments on Earth. And like all real estate, pricing is driven by scarcity. Daytime gate slots at a major international hub, Heathrow, JFK, LAX, C, D, G, are among the most contested commodities in commercial aviation. Airlines pay for them, compete for them in regulatory proceedings, and occasionally sell them to each other for sums that would buy several houses in a normal city. At night, the scarcity inverts. Demand drops. Pricing softens. Takeoff slots become available that simply don't exist at 2 in the afternoon. Ground handling is faster because the ramp isn't a traffic jam of simultaneous departures. Turnaround times shrink. Fuel trucks aren't queuing. A wide-body aircraft that might sit at a gate for an hour waiting for clearance during a busy daytime push can be loaded, fueled, and airborne in a fraction of the time at midnight. There is also the noise curfew problem, and it cuts in both directions. Many major airports, particularly across Europe and Australia, operate under strict overnight noise restrictions. London Heathrow cannot accept certain categories of aircraft arrivals after a set hour in the evening. Sydney Airport has legally enforced quiet periods through the small hours of the morning. These curfews force arriving aircraft to land before the window closes, which means they must depart from the other end of the route at a time that gets them there on schedule. Curfews at the destination, in other words, determine departure times at the origin. Airlines are playing chess across a board that spans 12 time zones, 2 hemispheres, and a dozen different regulatory environments. The clock at the gate, that 10:55 p.m. departure, is the visible move. The calculation behind it goes back weeks. Now the natural question: is any of this going to change? New aircraft like the Airbus A350 and Boeing 787 Dreamliner have genuinely improved the long-haul experience in ways that were unimaginable 2 decades ago. Cabin pressure is higher, equivalent to roughly 6,000 feet altitude instead of 8,000, which reduces fatigue and dehydration noticeably. Humidity systems reduce the dryness that leaves passengers feeling hollowed out after a long flight. LED lighting systems that can simulate sunrise and sunset are being used to actively manage circadian rhythm disruption. The cabins are quieter. The turbulence dampening is better. These are real improvements, and passengers feel them. But, and this is the critical point, none of these advances have shifted the departure boards. Long-haul overnight flying has not declined. It has, if anything, intensified as airlines expand ultra-long-haul routes that push past 18 hours. Singapore to New York direct, London to Perth, Doha to Auckland. The longer the route, the more every factor we've discussed compounds. The jet stream advantage, the hub connectivity, the gate economics, the biology of sleep, and the more powerfully the math points toward a late-night gate call. There are supersonic ambitions on the horizon. Boom Supersonic's Overture aircraft, if it reaches commercial service, promises New York to London in roughly 3.5 hours. At that speed, the jet stream advantage becomes trivial. The hub connectivity model changes, and a daytime transatlantic crossing becomes plausible. But supersonic travel carries its own brutal constraints: noise, fuel burn, cost, the blanket prohibition on supersonic flight over populated land. And until those are solved at commercial scale, the physics and economics of subsonic aviation remain unchanged. The human body hasn't evolved since the jet age began. Time zones are fixed. The wind still flows east at 200 miles per hour over the North Atlantic. And somewhere, right now, a network planner at a major airline is staring at a spreadsheet that ends with the same answer it always ends with: depart at 11 p.m. So, next time you're at the gate, 11:30 p.m., the terminal is half empty and your neck pillow is already on. The departure board is showing a 40-minute delay, and the coffee stand closed an hour ago. You're wondering, with some genuine irritation, why anyone thought this was a good idea. Here's what's actually happening around you. The aircraft you're about to board has been positioned at this gate at this precise hour because somewhere in the upper atmosphere, a corridor of wind is blowing east at nearly the speed of sound, and this departure time catches it at full strength. The fuel that saves will pay for something else on this airline's balance sheet before breakfast. Your flight is full, maybe overfull, partly because passengers from 6 European cities have connected through this hub tonight, feeding into your aircraft specifically because it departs at an hour that makes their morning arrival at the far end workable. The connecting itinerary revenue on this single aircraft, on this single night, runs into 7 figures. The airport gave this flight a takeoff slot that would cost 3 times as much in 8 hours. The ground crew turned this aircraft around in under an hour because there were no competing wide-bodies on the ramp. A noise curfew at your destination shaped the departure window before anyone even drew up a schedule. And your body, your beautiful, predictable, melatonin-soaked body, is about to do the airline a favor it has never invoiced for. You're going to fall asleep. The crew will have a quieter cabin. You'll wake up somewhere over the ocean with a blanket across your lap and daylight showing through the window shade and a time zone waiting to recalibrate you on the other side. The red-eye flight is not an accident of scheduling. It is not a concession to operational necessity or a relic of early aviation. It is the product of 60 years of accumulated knowledge about human biology, atmospheric physics, airport economics, and global network design, all converging every night at that single moment when the gate agent picks up the microphone and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, we are now ready to begin boarding. Sleep well."